Tap water in the United States is often considered safe, but that doesn't mean it's always consistent. That distinction matters more than most people realize. If you turn on your faucet, you expect clean, drinkable water. And in many cases, that's exactly what you get. The U.S. has one of the most developed water treatment systems in the world, with regulations designed to keep water within safe limits, but within limits is not the same as perfect. And that's where the conversation really starts. To understand how good or bad tap water is, you need to look at the full journey from source to faucet. At the beginning of that journey, water is collected from natural sources like rivers, lakes, or underground aquifers. It's then treated at facilities where contaminants are reduced or removed using established processes. At this stage, the water is typically tested and monitored to meet regulatory standards. So at the source, things are generally controlled. But once that water leaves the treatment plant, it enters a distribution system, miles of pipes that carry it to homes, businesses, and buildings. And this is where variability comes in. The condition of those pipes can vary widely depending on location. Some systems are modern and well maintained. Others are decades old, with materials that have been in place for a long time. As water travels through this network, it can interact with the pipes themselves. In some cases, that means picking up small amounts of metals or sediment. In others, it may involve changes in taste, odor, or clarity. This doesn't automatically make the water unsafe, but it does mean that the quality of tap water can change between the treatment facility and your kitchen. Another factor is local differences. Tap water quality in the U.S. is not the same everywhere. It depends on regional infrastructure, environmental conditions, and how systems are maintained over time. Some areas have very stable systems with minimal issues. Others may experience periodic concerns, such as temporary contamination events, maintenance disruptions, or aging infrastructure challenges. This leads to an important point. When people ask, how bad is tap water in the U.S., they're often looking for a single answer, but the reality is more localized. In some places, tap water is consistently reliable. In others, it requires more attention. And in most cases, it falls somewhere in between. There's also the question of what safe actually means. Water regulations are designed to keep contaminants below certain levels. These levels are based on long-term research and are considered acceptable for public health, but acceptable does not mean zero. It means that small amounts of certain substances may still be present within defined limits. For most people, this is not an issue, but it does mean that tap water is not completely free of all contaminants. Another aspect to consider is what happens inside your own home. Even if the water entering your house meets standards, your plumbing can influence what comes out of the tap. Pipes, fixtures, and storage conditions can all play a role. For example, water that sits in pipes overnight may have more contact with those materials than water used during the day. That's why something as simple as running the tap for a few seconds can change the water you're drinking. Again, this is not about creating alarm. It's about understanding the system, because once you understand the system, the question shifts. Instead of asking, is tap water bad, you start asking, what factors affect my water specifically? And that's a much more useful question. Now let's talk about perception. Tap water often gets a mixed reputation. Some people trust it completely. Others avoid it whenever possible. Both perspectives can be influenced by personal experience, local reports, or general awareness of infrastructure issues, but perception doesn't always match reality. In many cases, tap water is regularly tested and maintained within regulatory standards. At the same time, it can still have variations that are not immediately obvious. So the goal is not to assume the worst or blindly trust everything. It's to be informed. That brings us to the key insight. Tap water in the U.S. is not simply good or bad. It's a system. A system with multiple stages, each with its own level of control and variability. At the treatment stage, control is high. During distribution, variability increases. At the household level, individual factors come into play. So the quality of your water depends on how all these parts interact, and once you see it this way, the next step becomes clear. If you want more certainty, you need more visibility. That could mean reviewing local water quality reports, which many municipalities provide. It might involve simple testing methods that give you a snapshot of your water's current condition. From there, you can decide whether any adjustments are needed. Some people use filtration systems to address specific concerns. Others look into different ways to manage water quality at home, depending on their situation. The point is not to overcomplicate things. It's to move from assumption to understanding, because when you understand your water, you can make decisions that are based on your reality, not generalizations. So, How bad is tap water in the US? In most cases, it's managed within established safety standards. But it's not uniform. It can vary by location, infrastructure, and even the conditions inside your own home. That doesn't mean you should be concerned every time you turn on the tap. It means you should be aware of how the system works and what factors might apply to you, because once you have that awareness, you're no longer guessing. You're making informed choices. If you found this breakdown useful, consider subscribing for more clear and practical insights like this. And if you want to take a closer look at how some people are improving water quality at home with simple, structured approaches, there's a resource in the description that walks through one of these methods step by step. It can help you understand your options and decide what fits your situation.